You might notice
Yeah.
that me and Samira have actually the same colored walls, which is weird.
Because we're in the same apartment. We're actually on opposite sides, though, of the
Sides
apartment.
department.
The guy that came over last night called our apartment pristine,
Pristine, because we're
which I
clean.
liked.
You've never seen two girls cleaner than me and Samira,
I liked the
except
pristineness
for my litter box.
comments.
That's the only thing.
Yeah, and the
And
hair
the
in the
hair in the drain.
bathroom.
But those are really the only two things. And sometimes
Yeah.
Samira leaves the lights on and I shut them off, so it kind of balances
Yeah,
out.
but I don't do that
You
much.
do do
Well, that's
it.
because you live in the dark.
No, I don't.
Yes, you
I don't like
do.
overhead lights. So
I don't either, but we
we've been
don't have
waiting for
another
you to
option.
you are supposed to get
We're
us. This is
supposed to
your
go to Antier
responsibility. Also,
together.
Samira sold all her books like a fucking psychopath, and now we
We're
can't
supposed to
put
go to
all of her
Antier
books
together.
on the fucking table when all of my books are out and five of her books are out. And it just feels like imbalanced, like I had control over everything when I didn't even want it that way. She sold all her fucking books.
Because I wasn't
That
able to.
genuinely, I was actually thinking about that last night and it was like making my insides like feel
Okay, well, you
horrible.
need to let go of that because, like,
Because why would you sell all your books?
because
That is
I
the most fucked up shit I've ever fucking heard in my fucking life. Like, I
please
can't
don't.
sit this way this whole time. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. If he joins, just stall him, okay?
If he joins, I'm gonna freak out.
Hey, I was in the
Did
bathroom where the bathroom's right next to Samira's room. It's kind of
you
like,
hear all of us? Did you hear us talking?
no, I didn't hear anything actually.
Wow, that's
Our walls
great
are
to know.
really thick.
Great
Yeah.
to know.
That's
Yeah.
a really good. That's a good apartment.
It
I
That's so
know.
is.
great.
It's crazy because like you really don't find that just anywhere.
It's true. It's kind of a rare gem.
Claro used to live in this building, apparently.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a really good law.
I
I
know.
know.
Isn't it awesome?
Isn't that a good omen?
Yeah.
I think it means good things are gonna happen to us in this apartment, hopefully.
Your stuff has been going crazy like recently. It's been really interesting seeing you like because after the fade like stopped running. I know you've been posting like Shaad magazine like stuff like for like kind of over a year, right? I think it's about to be at like the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, July 17th. So we're
Yeah.
coming up to it.
Yeah, that's exciting. But yeah, no, I know you've been doing it for a while, like before the face like fell off. But it's interesting because I feel like everyone kind of started paying attention around that time.
Attention to what?
Like I feel like at least to me, I became aware of it, and then like everyone I knew suddenly became aware of what you were doing. Once the face, like you did that post about how the face was ending, and it was like this really sad moment for like journalism, which I think is interesting because like I feel like stuff that's like magazine related and like it just like falls into like kind of that category of like media, like often gets like such insane attention online. Like I had a friend who like made a fake New Yorker post for himself and he like then started going viral after that post, which I thought is like was interesting because I feel like the thing that gets the most attention on social media in my opinion is like when someone posts like, oh, I wrote this thing for this thing, or this is this thing that happened to me with this job at this magazine and blah blah blah, which I think is really
Yeah.
fascinating.
It is interesting. It's this weird um it's almost like counterintuitive because people do kind of care about media. They just don't want to read the article. They just want to see that
Yeah.
someone did
hmm
the article and like got the cosign from the legacy
Yeah.
publication or whatever. Like
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think people are often um yeah, people are like well this is kind of why I started Child Magazine
Mm-hmm.
is like I was certain that there was still an audience for writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had been at dinner with a very famous music critic who, at this point, this was about a year ago, I guess, had just started posting two camera videos. He'd started to move into short form content,
Mm-hmm.
and basically he was like, if you don't pivot to video, you'll be left behind in the kind of cold digital future. And I just felt that that was so, I felt that it just couldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, people do want to read, they just don't want to leave platform. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I started Shaad magazine, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really like good idea. Just the people not wanting to leave the platform because that is such a thing of like, oh, this person did this article and this is so cool, but like I'm not actually gonna click on a link in a bio to read it kind of thing.
Mm.
Exactly, yeah, and it's like I was finding, I would write an article for like the New York Times or something, or I'd write like a cover story for the Face, and like people would kind of congratulate me on the piece, but you could tell they
Yeah.
didn't read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with Shard Magazine stuff, it's crazy. Like people want to talk about like granular details in each piece. It's
Oh,
it's
that's
it's
really
really it's
cool though.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
so
interesting that
cool.
you're like actually able to then engage people with it and there's like that stark difference of like a response to it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And like, I follow media quite closely. Like I read all the Puck newsletters, I listen to all those podcasts, I read, Status and ML and all these different things, and I'm very aware of like media trends, I'd say. And like,
Mm.
I guess at this time last year, I was faced with a decision, which was like do a Substack, do a podcast, or pivot to short form video. And I just didn't want to do any of those things. I like
Mm.
writing and I like reading, and I started doing this because I like writing.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I kind of had some general ideas of like, I could start a Substack, but one, I've always wanted to reach the most people possible. I haven't been interested in kind of like paywall. Two, I thought that maybe it would be saturated by that point already. Now it's even more saturated. Three, it's like at that point, so when I started Child Magazine, I had probably, let's say like 6 or 7 thousand Instagram followers.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, let's say 1% of that, 1 to 5% maximum will click through to my Substack. And of those people, 1 to 5% will pay for it. And I was just basically like, I don't have the audience to make it worth it. To like
Hmm.
to just
Mm.
start a Substack based on that many Instagram followers. And so yeah, that's where it came into like, okay, it's kind of like a series of like educated bets, like based on kind of years of just ambient research, and I would say it's paid off quite well. I mean, it's only
Yeah.
a year in, but people kind of care about it more than anything else I've ever done.
Yeah, and I feel
Yeah.
like you're like responding to a very like real kind of internal conflict too, because I feel like that's something I've like kind of weighed in my head where I've like tried Substack and also like even just like with the podcast, we're like, well, like, should we like put it somewhere? Like, should we make a Patreon? Should we make a Discord? And it's kind of like trying to like file people into somewhere else is just like a really like I don't know. I don't like it and I don't trust it. Like it feels like you're just spreading things out more and making it like more confusing for everyone to just kind of find you in one place. And yeah, I think it's really cool that you went against that and then like I haven't really seen anyone do what exactly what you're doing where it's like a full on article in an
Hmm.
Instagram post. And I think that it is just yeah, like what people want.
Yeah, and well, and the other thing is like I have a lot of respect for people who make little videos or whatever. I know that sounds
Yeah.
patronizing, but
No,
like they're
no,
literally little videos because it
Yeah.
takes so much work, but also it's like the nature of what you do in those videos, even if you're talking about music or whatever it is, you're talking about culture, it's just going to be different. And I
yeah.
really like the kind of like practice and craft of writing. That sounds so wanky, but like, and then the other thing is like, I fundamentally don't want to trade on how I look.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Um, and that is like such a struggle because I don't know, the moment it becomes visual, it's like you have to be in it, and then it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I'm already really fixated on how I look in quite a bad way,
Mm-hmm.
so it's been nice to do something that kind of takes it out of that economy as well.
Yeah, and I see like a
Yeah.
lot of like magazines kind of try to attempt it in their own way and it's interesting trying to see like a balance of like journalistic professionalism in these like reels where they're like I don't know doing like best songs of the week or something and they're like
Yeah.
trying to find a way to like turn that into like oh well the thing that does well is like content creation by a person who's like a person to everyone and feels you can feel their personhood through the reel and like then like trying to do that but it's like no but this is a magazine And like I saw that like Pace was doing this recently because like Casey, my good friend, is like doing the reels for their like best new music 5 songs, whatever thing that they come out with each week. And it's just like interesting, like, because she's not a content creator, she's a journalist. And like I have also just heard like other friends at other publications be like, yeah, they're like laying people off because they don't know how to make an Instagram reel. But this is like a journalist who's been in the space for like 10 plus years, and now like everything is being turned on its head. And I don't like that, but I also think there is like, yeah, as you said, like I think it's very respectable to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's just its own skill, you know,
Yeah.
and in an
Yeah.
ideal world, in a world with like the correct amount of like budgets and things like that, that both could exist. You know, like
Hmm.
I don't
Mm.
watch a lot of those kinds of creators because I think it's fraught on a lot of different levels. A lot of them are taking money under the table. A lot of them are like, you know, talking about music in a way that I find super annoying. You know, there's
Hmm.
really a way that people talk when they're talking to camera that I just can't stand. But I think some of
Yeah.
them have really good taste as well. Yeah, and but it's just a different thing, and like I think because it does take so long to make a video, I would hazard a guess as to like the reason then that the format becomes so much about like recommendation or like if you like this, you'll like this, is because there's not as much time to do actual criticism and analysis. There's
Yeah.
way more time to be like, oh, this X song sounds like Y song. Like that will take
Mm.
you like 2 minutes. Whereas like sitting listening to something a really long time takes time naturally, you know?
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. There definitely is like a very specific type of person to like make those videos and then succeed at it. And yeah, I feel like I've struggled a lot with that because it's like I don't even know what it is. It's like this like on camera quality that you have to have. Um, but okay, I kind of want to go back before we like get more into like the magazine and everything that you've done into just what your internet background and history looked like and what parts of the internet formed you. And yeah, of like what communities you were in, if you were a stan of anyone in particular, and just yeah, what that looked like.
Well, so I mean, I've been on the internet my whole life. Like I don't even really sometimes I think that I kind of remember having dial-up, but I actually am pretty sure I don't. Like I don't really remember a time when the internet wasn't like really fast or like when, you know, a family friend wasn't coming around to like help us like torrent some
Mm.
kids' TV show we wanted to watch or something.
Mhm.
Wait, how old are you?
Um, I'm 28,
Yeah.
so a
Okay.
bit older than you guys, I think.
Mm.
How old are you
Yeah.
guys?
We're both
25.
25.
Yeah. So like kind of the same problem, but those like few years actually in that like 90s 2000s period are kind of crucial, but at the same time
Yeah.
it's like kind
Yeah.
of basically the same.
Yeah.
So I was on the internet as a kid, um, played like neopets and stuff. I would say like teenage years, like Tumblr was like just huge for me. I was
Hmm.
so into Tumblr. I met so many of my friends through Tumblr.
Mm.
Like I made it was very much the kind of like I mean, I'm sure people still make friends on the internet and they're like meeting up secretly with the friend they made on the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I was doing as well, but it was through Tumblr, which was kind of weird because it was actually in hindsight, it was so much easier to like pretend to kind of be a different person on Tumblr. Like the people
Hmm.
I met up with, I was just taking it for granted that they were other people my age, kind of. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everyone was kind of posting photos sometimes, but again, that's in hindsight, that's so falsifiable. So this is about like from the ages of like maybe 13 to 16, 17,
Mm.
Hmm.
when I was and like yeah, I had lots of followers. That's where I learned about like a lot of music. Um it was that kind of in tandem with when I was like maybe 12 or 13, I got an iPod
Okay.
and I wanted to put songs on the iPod, but obviously I didn't have enough money to like be buying lots of things. And so I torrented some music, but also I would like go on free MP3 blogs. Do you
Mm.
guys know what the hype machine is?
Mm-mm.
Mm.
Okay, so the hype machine. See, this is what I mean. This would have been like really popping for maybe like 2 years, and maybe yeah, but it was basically this MP3 blog aggregator. So it would rank it would rank songs. It was like a chart for songs based on how many MP3 blogs were like posting about those songs.
Oh, interesting.
That's
And
cool.
so
And it was
yeah,
like linked to Tumblr or
no, it wasn't linked to Tumblr. Sorry, this is in tandem. Sorry, I'm kind
okay,
of firing all
this
over
is
the
like
place.
before Tumblr, you're saying.
Well, this is like
Or like
this was
just
happening at the same time for
yeah.
me,
Okay,
kind of.
okay.
So, and so that really formed my musical taste because it was a really big space, like a lot of big like remixers and DJs, like kind of got popular through that ecosystem. But basically, it would be like, the number one song on the chart might be like, you know, a remix of a Neon Indian song. And
Mm,
then you could click through to the blogs, and then one of them would inevitably have the song just for a free MP3 download.
Mm,
And so that's how I got songs to put on my iPod. And
yeah,
then
okay,
in
yeah.
tandem with that, that's how I discovered websites like Stereogum and Pitchfork, and that's kind of how I discovered music criticism. And so I
Mm,
was like very engaged in that very early on, from maybe age of like 12 or 13 or something. I was reading like every Pitchfork review that came out every day, and like
oh,
that's how I kind of learned about writing and like lots of different styles of writing, and like a lot of my favorite writers, the kind of writers that made me want to do it as well. People like Amanda Petrusich and Lindsay Zolads and Corbin Goebel and stuff. Though at the same time, I was on Tumblr, and that was like a very social place for me. But also kind of like that was a lot of learning about different kinds of music as well, but also like visual art and like that was the kind of like Petra Collins era and that kind of stuff.
mhm,
Um, and yeah, so that was probably all that stuff kind of the hype machine like stopped being functional maybe like a year after I started using it or something, but I was on
mhm,
Tumblr till the age of maybe like 16, 17.
mhm,
um I was never a stan of anyone that I remember. Like I really liked certain things. I'm trying to think. I wonder if I was in any like fan communities.
well,
mhm.
were you on Tumblr for like anything specific, or were you just kind of like
Yeah, like what was
No,
your
it
account?
was just like vibes. It was
okay,
Okay, it was
yeah,
like an aesthetic kind of
yeah,
blog.
yeah, aesthetics or like posting songs or like writing. Like we were all just like blogging about our lives, which
Yeah.
was
yeah,
crazy. Which was like writing or like doing the anonymous questions thing, and it was
Yeah.
like
yes.
which was crazy
The
as well.
anonymous questions thing was
Oh my God, it's
so
I know, I
fun.
missed
I missed
that.
that so much.
it's so crazy to think about. I know I kind of miss it as well. I think there
Yeah.
should be some kind of Instagram function where you can send someone an anonymous
Oh my
message,
God, that like in
but
Yeah, well,
today's world would be crazy.
because
it
also
would
people used to
actually.
always kind of link Ask FM to their Instagram pages and like use that
Mm,
like in like collaboration with each other.
yeah, it was a weird environment, and there were those people who were like too obsessed with it as well, like
Mm,
but yeah, yeah. So lots of that. That was kind of that was the bedrock that I would say has shaped how I act online and what I do online kind of to this day.
mm,
I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool that you like discovered Pitchfork and those like websites or magazines very early on and were just like invested in that kind of like from the beginning. Did you always then like know that you wanted to do music criticism and go into music journalism?
Um, I think I kind of had an idea of it. Like, I think I basically, by the time I was maybe like 15, 16, I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. And
Yeah.
then basically, as soon as I turned 18, because like I realized that this year I've been writing about music. I've been getting paid to write about music for 10 years.
mm,
And yeah, that's because as soon as I turned 18, I just basically like very doggedly I like Googled like how to pitch an article, and like I kind of had a sense that I was already a pretty possible writer just because I already kind of had a sense for what was bad writing.
Mm-hmm.
mm.
And so then yeah, I just started. I was like, I'm gonna write for Pitchfork, that will be my thing. And actually I can probably check. um I wonder, I want to see when I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's cool that you did that like at 18. You kind of were just like immediately on that.
Mm.
Okay, so I wrote my first Pitchfork review in July 2017. So that would have been like a
Okay.
year. That would have been like maybe when I was like 20, I
Okay.
think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it took me like a year, and I pitched Pitchfork like constantly,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and like certain like sometimes an editor would reply and be like, actually, this is how you should do your pitch, or like this is the kind of stuff you should be pitching or whatever. But yeah, basically.
How did you kind of like adjust to what they wanted? Like, what were you initially like sending in, and then how did you like shift that over time?
I have no idea. I probably didn't actually change things that much.
Yeah.
But what and I was kind of just like, once I have a foot in the door, maybe then it'll be fine. And
Hmm.
it kind of was, although I think it was like another year until I wrote another review or something.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, so I'm from Australia. Did I mention that?
You didn't know, but
No,
I
Okay.
did.
but we knew.
We knew this. I saw
You
this in my
knew.
research.
Yeah, good, good, good. So I'm from Australia, and I would say it's really hard to write for international publications if you're from Australia. That was like a big issue, kind of. Not
Mm,
issue, but it was just really it's just hard to like get noticed, and like
Mm.
it's hard to be in the mix, and like I would say I kind of like got there like very doggedly, but it wasn't until I moved to the UK really that I started getting like really big assignments or whatever. I would say I
mm,
did a really good job for someone so far away, but there
yeah.
is a real kind of like, it's almost like you're not considered a real person if you're not like on a similar time zone or something. And I
Mm.
was
Mm,
doing this slightly crazy thing where I would like, I think I would wait to send my pitch emails to American editors at like midnight or whatever it was, like whatever the morning was in New York time, because I kind of had this
Yeah.
ambient awareness of that, but I wasn't really like fully aware of it until I moved here, actually.
mm.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't like ever process that it would be like with Australia that would be harder to then get pitches accepted or just to get noticed.
Well, because also I do feel like if you just are existing in either like in any of the like really really major like spaces like New York or London or like
Like
LA for
LA.
just like that kind of work, like you just do like you meet people and then you're able to do the things you want way more
Yeah.
Yeah,
easily.
yeah, that's what's interesting. Like, for all the talk of like, everyone always talks about how like, the internet has democratized all these different things,
Mm.
and in a certain way it has. But actually, like, I think that's cope most of the time. Like, most fundamentally, most stuff, like most of the kind of productive effort and energy that is needed for like getting ahead in life, quote unquote, like those very heavy air quotes, is
Mm.
happening in real life, which
Hmm.
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting. And even if that's not even like distinctly in real life, but even if like, you see a photo of someone at an event that you wanted to go to that was in your city, you just
Mm.
suddenly
Yeah.
have an awareness of them as a real person. Like, even
Yeah.
if you have mutual friends with someone, it's not even about meeting people, it's just about like being around. It's
Mm.
almost kind of like
Hmm.
an energetic thing. It's like really quite weird.
Yeah, no, I definitely relate to that because like we moved to New York like a year ago, and before that we were in Philly. And I feel like I just like could literally like I was like pitching like bigger publications like a lot, like trying to like get myself in, and I like people did not want me. And then like also I think like the podcast has given a sort of awareness a little bit because we're not even that big, but like I think it has like allowed me to like break into those spaces. And then like once I moved here, I was like, okay, now I'm like able to like connect with people at like bigger publications and try and write things for like outlets that I like wanted to write for. But it's like crazy because like I don't know, you would think that even just from like kind of being on the internet that would have like worked from afar, but it like didn't.
No, well, look, it did, but with a lot more effort. I can see now with like younger writers who maybe kind of came up in New York or whatever, or London, it's
Mm,
so much easier to get them to take a chance on you if you're in the same
yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and like it's kind of crazy. I've had to like really reckon with certain feelings of like annoyance or like jealousy that like it did, that there are some like really green writers who like got all these opportunities that I didn't have just because I was in Australia. That being
Hmm.
said, like it's one of those things that you really can't care about. Like I try, like I find that kind of resentment is like so not productive and like so
Mm-hmm.
not interesting. Like it's a very unflattering character in a person. So like I try not to think about it. But like after a few drinks, like scrolling online and seeing someone do something that took me like that felt like years of like really hard work to like get to the place of like being taken seriously by that editor or something
Hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
be kind of annoying. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. And like like that kind of sucks, but also I do think there's something cool about the fact that like I mean I'm sure New York kind of feels like this sometimes, but like in London, everyone who kind of wanted that life for themselves has moved here. It's like
Mm-hmm.
among my friends, it's like no one is really from London. The only kind of uniting thing is that everyone here, and no one wants to live in London. Like London is such a grueling, hard place to live. It's really beautiful, it's really fun, but like fundamentally, I think no one would live here if they didn't have to. And
Mm-hmm.
I love like looking around and seeing that like the common thread for all my friends is like that they were the person who cared so much about doing whatever they do that they had to move to this kind of insane city and live this kind of unlivable life in
Yeah.
order to do what they really wanted to do, which I think is kind of I like that atmosphere basically.
Yeah, that definitely
Yeah.
feels true here too, where like everyone just is like united by the like it's not even like I feel like the way that I think about it is just like, oh, everyone here like decided to be here in a way that is so intense and so like unlike Philadelphia, where a lot of people just like grew up in Philadelphia and just were there by default. And like you could feel that just because they're kind of like, nah, I'm just here. And then like
Yeah.
here it's like, no, you decided to be here and you're making like this intentional choice. And part of it like feels social too, where it's like within like social dynamics, like everyone is just kind of more motivated to like make like these connections. Not in like a like gross way. Like in like a actually just like I think in a similar way that people are motivated by like career, it's like, oh, also people really just want to connect with others here. And you can like feel
Yeah.
that in every interaction where like everyone's always trying. Like and I was
Yeah.
often encountering like in Philly, I would sometimes feel like I was talking to people who were like brain dead, and it was often that this would happen if you just run into someone at a bar, which I don't actually think anyone's brain dead, but like you could just tell that they don't like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like a different
Yeah.
feeling.
Totally. That's
Yeah.
so interesting because the character I've always understood of Philly people, and this is only from meeting, it's like when I think of Philly, I think of like the Philly type, which is like,
Mhm.
will be like, oh, you've not slept on as many floors as me, and you've not been to as many house shows as me, and like,
Yeah,
fuck
yeah, the
you,
house
and
show
like,
vibe,
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
more hardcore than you, and I've
Yeah.
not showered in more days than you, and like, just like people who like, that to me is my image of the hardcore Philly type. But I guess there would also be people not like that. So
Yeah.
that's why I've
Yeah.
never
Well,
been to Philly, basically.
yeah.
Did you guys grow up in Philly?
Like in the suburbs outside of Philly, we both did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then went
cool.
to Philly for college and
Yeah,
then
that's where
was
we
just
met.
there for like a few years after college.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do kind of want to hear you give maybe like a grander outline of like, okay, so from like that point of like cold emailing like pitchfork editors, like how did your career in journalism then evolve to what it is now?
Well, it was just, I guess it was just that. It was like, getting taken, it was pretty slow. It was like in fits and starts, it was like, oh, actually, no, I'm totally forgetting something. Okay, so, so I'm like writing for a couple of years and I've got like a job doing social media somewhere. But then I applied to be the editor when I was about 19. I applied and got the job as the Australia and New Zealand editor of Noisy, which was Vice's music vertical. Do you
Okay.
guys remember
Okay.
this?
I didn't
Yeah.
know about it, but like I understand what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like my first journalism job. And
That's
I think
cool.
through that, because there was that kind of like direct transfer between the US and the Australian teams, like I worked close with the US team and like, my articles would get published on that website in America. That is kind of how I think I first came onto people's radar,
Yeah.
basically,
Okay.
in America. And it still wasn't like, it still wasn't like in a big way, but I guess from there I started contributing to Pitchfork, and like, I was writing for like The Guardian and like a few other places, Guardian Australia.
Hmm.
All these places, even the ones that have international presences, like there's always like the main there's always like the core team. Like for The Guardian, for example, like the UK team was like really kind of like the center of operations. And then kind of like if you're coming from the US or the UK and you want to kind of make it into that spot, you kind of have to like slowly like dig your way in that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Hmm.
And so Noisy was like that as well, but the US team were really great. And they also, there was a lot of kind of like mentorship, it's like people like Leslie Horn and like Colin Joyce, yeah. Uh, I've seen him recently, but I just because I was thinking of Colin Joyce. I was like, Colin Joyce sounds weird. No, no, yeah, Colin Joyce and people like that, who I met, and also then Alex Robert Ross, and then actually it's kind of complicated story. So basically, I was working for Noisy. I got laid off from Vice among like a big round of layoffs, kind of like maybe the first round that like portended its big kind of like initial downfall.
Yeah.
But at that point, my former boss at Noisy US, Eric Sunderman, had moved over to the Fader as executive editor. Oh my God, I kind of blocked these years out of my life. I kind of blocked these out of my memory. Um, because but for reasons I'll get into. But basically, Eric Sunderman had moved over to the Fader.
Mm.
Eric was later revealed to be a sexual predator.
Mm.
Okay.
So then he got fired from the Fader while I was there. But anyway, while he was at the Fader, he kind of took over his whole team, a lot of the team from Noisy. And he was like, "Do you want to work for the Fader doing overnight news and like some editing stuff?" And so I did that. So then I worked for the Fader for a few years. Um, when he got fired, Larry Fitzmaurice became the editor. Larry was really great. He was just, yeah, really nice guy, really funny, really cool. And then he left. Alex Robert Ross, who I'd also worked with at Noisy, became the editor.
Mm.
And he and I had a really good relationship. And I was still kind of doing news, but also doing a lot of editing stuff. I feel like yeah, like edited a lot of stuff together. We worked on all the big end of year packages, and then I guess and then all the while I was also freelancing, for Pitchfork mostly, but also like The Guardian sometimes, and like a couple of different places. And then oh my God, it's crazy how I just like have no memory of this, because it was because in many ways these years were kind of inconsequential,
Hmm.
just because, and you know why? Because no one was reading it. Like
Yeah.
like that's so horrible to say, but like
Mm.
truly no one was reading this shit. And I was writing mostly writing news, which
Yeah.
Yeah.
sucks. Which
Yeah.
is like the worst job you can have in music
Yeah.
Hmm.
journalism, because you're just aggregating other stuff.
Yeah.
Um uh and like I was doing interviews and stuff. I was profile writing, I'd say like at this point probably like profile writing is like kind of at the core of what I do.
Mm.
Hmm.
Or maybe it goes back and forth. And like, working at the Fader was really good for, writing lots of profiles of like smaller artists, like because I
Hmm.
was kind of on staff there. It's like it's really hard to place those kinds of articles if you're a freelancer, but if you're on staff, they kind
Mm.
of let you go long-ish on kind of like younger artists.
Mm.
Um,
Do
so
you
then
remember
I
what
guess,
your Oh, sorry. Keep
yeah, no, you
going.
go.
No, no, I was just gonna ask if you remembered what like your first big profile was.
Hmm. It was for a website that doesn't exist anymore, and it's well, no, sorry, it totally exists. It totally exists, but I'm pretty sure I got my archive taken off the website
Okay.
because I was embarrassed by it. And that's the other thing. Oh my God, wait, I'm just remembering. Oh my God, I used to write for all these websites that don't exist anymore, like these Australian websites, and that's where
Mm.
also where I started first got to write a bunch of stuff. I would say the first big profile I did for an American outlet was, and it wasn't big. It was like maybe 1,200 words. I
Hmm.
wrote about the XX for Billboard
Oh,
because
Okay,
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
this editor at Billboard, Jason Lipschutz, needed someone to write a profile in Australia. The only
Mm.
time they could find was when they were on their Australian like press trip or whatever.
That's funny.
And someone recommended me, and it was a really because I was not as good a writer, I found it to be a really grueling process.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's also like considering that you were so into Tumblr, like the XX being your first profile is kind of like it's kind of sweet because they were such like one of those Tumblr bands that like people like they were just so beloved to
Like one
people.
of those aesthetic Tumblr
Yeah,
bands
yeah,
with
like
like
the
the
XX like
graphics over it.
yes,
yeah,
Yeah.
the cover art
and
was like such a
Yeah.
thing. It was like in that like wall of like ribs by Lord and like or
The
pure heroin and like yeah,
1975. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
and I also think that was the first vinyl I bought as well, their first
Aw,
album.
that's
that's
so
really
Yeah,
cool.
sweet.
so
Yeah.
it's actually good kind of mirror image thing. But yeah, and then I don't even know when I stopped working at the Fader. I think maybe during the pandemic or just before they cut our hours really bad.
Mm.
I can't remember. But that just kind of petered out, basically.
Mm.
And at that point, I guess during the pandemic, I guess I was just like, I don't know what I was doing. I guess I was doing lots of work. I don't know. I was writing for The Guardian a bit, writing for Pitchfork a bit.
Mm.
But also kind of like planning to like move away. I wanted to move to New York or something. Ended up moving to London by accident. And at that point, I think also, I don't know, because people were reading a lot more during the pandemic, I guess.
Hmm.
Because people are online a lot more. I also like made some other connections, and then basically I was coming to London to see ABBA Voyage, which is the ABBA hologram show.
Mm.
And um I had been emailing with Laura Snapes. I didn't know her at this point. Now she's like one of my best friends, but I was like, "Oh, I'm coming to London in the summer." And she was like, "Oh, you should write stuff for The Guardian. You should cover Glastonbury with us." And
Mm.
so basically covering Glastonbury for The Guardian, it's like they do this big 3 day live blog. It's
That's
like a
so
huge
cool.
thing. Yeah. And I was like, okay, fun. Like I didn't kind of realize that it was a big deal. But
Yeah.
then that from there, it's like I met loads of people, and it's almost like as soon as I got to London, like everything kind of just shifted a bit. It
Yeah.
was like, and like I already knew some people, I'd been on the like New York Times podcast like quite a few times at that point.
Mm.
But then when I was in London, suddenly, Karen, who's no longer there, but the former music editor there, was like, "Oh, do you want to write this feature? Do you want to write this piece of criticism, whatever?" And so yeah, it was like as soon as I moved, it was almost like because I had all these like weird internet connections with people, suddenly they could become tangible.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that essentially kind of brings us up to not exactly, it brings us up to like 2022, but that's basically today. Yeah,
Okay. And then how did
Yeah.
you end up working at the Face?
I didn't.
Oh, so you were just freelancing mainly.
I was freelancing, but you know, I wrote a few cover stories for them.
Okay.
Um, I was just like really tight with them.
Yeah.
Um, and like it felt like I was kind of not exactly like part of the team, but like at least adjacent to it. And like,
Mm.
I hung out with them a lot, and they really took my ideas on board. And it just felt like a really good place for my work.
Hmm.
It felt like they really respected me in a way, I have really good, respectful relationships with a lot of my editors, but it just felt different in a way. Felt like we were kind of like really in sync or something. Yeah, it was just like, I started working with them actually when I was in Melbourne. I profiled Hate Rock for them, one of the great bands. And then yeah, I think the music editor there, Davey, he's like got such good taste and like a really good sense for young writers. Like, not that I was like a young writer at this point, I was like 25 or something. Wait, was that even true? Yeah, 25. Um, or like 24 when I started writing to him. But like, he really, it's like a lot of places it's kind of hard to break into the fold, you
Mm.
know. But with the face, it was just things felt really easy, and I wrote a lot of profiles. It had this good combination of qualities now that I think about it, actually, which is like I like asking the kind of like annoying, pesky questions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really kind of don't mind pissing someone off at all because I'm like, I'm here to do a job, you're here to do a job. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need to be friends with you,
Yeah.
Mm.
And but when you're writing for fashion magazines, sometimes they kind of don't want you to piss off the talent because they really rely on talent relationships.
Mm.
And with the face, it was this interesting combination where it's like it was a fashion magazine and a culture magazine, but also they were fine with me like asking kind of crazy questions and like,
Mm.
you know, the cover story I did with Charlie, before it was like the first one for Brat, like I remember that got shared around on social media really, really crazy. And then also like I did an interview with Jack Antonoff where he kind of like said some like mildly crazy stuff, and that was really widely shared and stuff, and like
Mm.
it just kind of felt like good, almost proof that like if you have an editor who doesn't mind you taking a risk on that level, stuff can do really well and people
Mm-hmm.
can still want to read the article. I mean, obviously, there's other things like I think a lot of writers now for themselves, like they would rather write a really like glowing, kind of like non-adversarial profile simply to because they want the musician to share the piece or whatever,
Mm.
Yeah. Well,
or because
there's
they want to seem like nice or something,
Mm.
which is just something like I'm, I just feel that we should all get past that. It's like we're,
yeah.
we're all we're all doing a job here. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also like the aspect of it where it feels like a lot of people now are getting into journalism or like to like become because of this like idea of like, oh, like I'm gonna become friends with this person that I'm interviewing or
Mm.
with this celebrity that I'm interviewing.
Which is so misguided, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't give a shit about you. They don't even know your name. They probably, and it's like, yeah, I'm like, at some point, maybe at some point, yeah, actually, I kind of credit working at the Guardian with this. Sorry, I skipped over this, but like,
No, you're
I
good.
worked at the Guardian in the UK as like um doing like a parental leave cover that in the end they messed up the contract, and so it was like nearly a year. So
Yeah.
um which was good, but basically yeah, at the Guardian it's like they don't want color, they want some color, but like they want like quotes, quotes, quotes. They want news lines. They're like, if you file copy that is like, a really nice interview, they'll be like, where's the news lines? It's like
Yeah.
they want it to be so quote dense and so dense with like new information. And so at some point when I was working there, it kind of like something switched in my brain, and I was like, suddenly and I really like this quality and I like this feeling before an interview when I can tell I want to get something is like almost this bloodthirstiness for like a really great quote, like
Yeah.
something that people will pick up, and like sometimes you just get amazing ones that like you don't even anticipate. Like
Mm.
um I did this interview with Billy Porter. I don't even know why I said yes to this. I guess I just wanted the money. But like, and I also think this is kind of the I kind of learned this from reading about, David Marchese, the guy from New York Magazine and now the New York Times, who like did those crazy interviews with like Julian Casablancas and
Mm.
Erica
Mm-hmm.
Badu and Quincy Jones. He was basically like, look, you just need to know everything they always return to, the same ideas they always return to, and then look for holes in those stories they always tell. And
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
so that's like with Jack Antonoff, for example, he always tells the exact same story. So it's like about asking questions like around that, or like so with Billy Porter, I was like, there's got to be something like kind of funny here, or like kind of interesting. And then basically um, he went on these successive rants about like all these different things, and like he like complained about all this crazy stuff, and like he compared himself to Viola Davis like four times in the interview. Um, and then at the end, I was asking him about the James Baldwin biopic that he's writing and starring in, and asked him about his own support of Israel versus James Baldwin's like devout support of Palestine and stuff, and he just went on this crazy rant where he was like he forgot the word Hamas. Like
Oh my God, that's so
he
funny.
he like he said all this crazy stuff. He was kind of pleading. He was like, I just want there to be no more violence, and like said all this insane stuff, and said like you know, he kind of yeah, and also right in the middle of it, and I couldn't even put this in the article. Right in the middle of it, he accidentally triggered something on his Zoom where all these balloons came up in the
Oh, that's so
screen.
funny.
I like that image of him like doing that while like telling this big like rant where he's also forgetting the word Hamas and then balloons are
Yeah.
like appearing on his screen.
And he's like, I don't want
I,
any more violence. And then the balloons
yeah,
just pop up.
but yeah. Anyway, like doing that, kind of saying yes to a profile that I otherwise would have just like thought would be so asinine and bad.
Mhm.
It all kind of developed, yeah, into this feeling of like any profile, like everyone has something crazy to say, basically.
Yeah.
Um, what were we kind of talking about
um Kind of about
before
like
that?
just how the face like let you do all these things like
Oh yeah, and like the face was just like totally open to that and totally willing.
mm.
Um,
No,
yeah,
because
but
I found that so significant on like the Instagram post that you had written. Um, because like I don't know, I feel like most things I've written end up like being so far from like the voice that I like initially kind of put into it, or just like people like I don't know. I feel like every magazine like has this idea of what they want their pieces to be, which is just like the voice of the magazine. And it's kind of heartbreaking when you like a piece goes up and you're like, this is not like I like you kind of have like a deep feeling that like, oh, if this was like kind of maintained more and like they were willing to kind of like go through with more like challenging bits of this, then it would be like such a different piece. And it would probably also be like much more impressive than just some like safe like piece of journalism, but like they won't really like let you a lot of the time. And so I found that really
right.
like significant about like how you felt leaving like with the face like falling.
Yeah, that's something I struggled with a lot. Is like early in my career, it felt like everything, like any kind of like tone of voice was like being beaten out of my writing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's only maybe in the past like 3 or 4 years and it's kind of started to not. Um, I think part of it is like learning how to like accommodate both the magazine's tone of voice and your own tone of voice is like
Mm.
something that but also I think it's kind of like like and I don't want to jinx anything. I'm like touching wood right now, but like I'm in a very privileged position right now where like I don't really like pitch anymore. Like it'll just mostly be places kind of like coming to me and asking if I want to do something, and then in that
That's so
framework
nice.
I know
That's
it's
so
like, and
nice.
it's
It's
something.
heaven.
It is, and like what's it's also it's awesome because it's something that I thought would never really happen. I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
that was kind of done. Um, but yeah, I think in like because of that, now I feel like I can take really big swings with like my own
Yeah.
style and my own tone of voice, and and they kind of get accepted a bit more. But
Yeah.
it still does happen sometimes, and like I find it really challenging because, and even with Shaad magazine, like I think part of that is like about taking a stylistic risk and like assuming that people will be interested in
Yeah.
said stylistic risk, and I agree with you. You know, I think one of the reasons that, you know, one of many reasons that a lot of that people have no loyalty towards certain publications or whatever is because there's not the ability for writers to kind of like make that publication their home and like
Mm.
experiment within those boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which I think is really sad. You know, it's like in the kind of golden days of like Vogue or whatever, or you know, whatever magazine, it's like there would be columnists with their own distinct style, and then you
Mm.
know they'd be able to kind of put a book together of all those columns from that publication
Yeah.
or whatever, and like, you know, if you look through those kinds of books, oftentimes there will be a week where they did something kind of like completely out of left field or whatever, and like I agree with you. I think that is kind of a really kind of sad element of all
Yeah.
of this. Basically,
Because
is writers should have a place to kind of be able to develop style. Like I get that there is a need for kind of like consistency, but also that's I think been part of the flattening of like internet journalism and the reason people
yeah.
find everything boring, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people would like really enjoy it. Like, because recently, like my friend who has never written like a music review, like was having me edit like a music review he wrote for like Perfectly Imperfect. And like they don't edit like that because they don't have guidelines. And it was just like nice to read because like, like I'm sure like it could have used like a little more like, I don't know, like structure in certain ways. But it was like nice to read because I was like, oh, you just care about this music and I'm not just reading some bullshit. But
Be
yeah, I'm talking
positive.
about Bernard Cohen's new piece on the Chanel Beads album, if anyone was curious about what I was talking about. But yeah, what was I gonna say? I think it's interesting because like mainly I think when I see because there's certain pieces that have impacted me a lot because I'm like, wow, this is really challenging and like something that I like you took a lot of risks and you were like allowed to do that. And I think it is traditionally just like writers who are already respected, who are kind of given the like freedom to do that. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is sad because like a lot of the like I don't know, I feel like I'm constantly just seeing like these like very jading cover stories on my Instagram
yeah,
feed because my algorithm like puts so much of that on my feed too because it's just like, I'm into journalism and I'm just like seeing like cover story of like bullshit of this person saying some bullshit and it's just like it's
yeah.
really
It's like the
tiring
same thing over and over
and I do
again.
It
think
makes
like a magazine has to come through and like not do that. And it will be so pivotal for people because people don't want that. And it's funny because it's like, that's just like, it's the easiest thing to like not do. Like, you have to put in a lot of work to make something like so devoid of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me pretty crazy. Like, you know, I see it from multiple sides because on one hand, a lot of the time it's about access, right? It's like you're not going to be able to write a good, interesting feature necessarily with like very minimal access, with like half an hour with someone
Yeah.
or sometimes even just an
Hmm.
hour. The other thing is, yeah, that fear, I think, from writers, I think a lot of writers look, a lot of a lot of writers want to affirm their subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I think my most interesting profiles and a lot of the most interesting profiles I've read come with some level of curiosity or even skepticism about what
Mm,
that person has to say.
yeah.
You know, it's like everyone's so credulous now. And I think a lot of the time you have to ask yourself, like, is this person bullshit? And like a lot of the time they will be. And sometimes you won't care. You know,
Mm,
it's like Olivia Rodrigo, I think she is making extremely compelling music. And so if she is like lying to me about certain things or whatever, that's kind of immaterial to the profile that I think would best be served
Hmm.
or that would best serve the publication at this point right now. But like a lot of the time, and also like being skeptical is not the same as like writing a hit piece.
yeah.
Like, and also you can be skeptical and try and interrogate someone in a soft-ish way, and then
Mm,
still come away being like, actually, you know, from what I can tell, they're not bullshit. And
Yeah.
but at least you asked, at least you pressed them on something. And I think so many writers like don't care to do that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure that it's about, yeah, like, I think some people do have a sense of personal style in their writing. I think a lot of people don't. Like a lot of people actually are just like bad writers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Like a lot
and
of
like,
most writing kind of is.
Hmm.
yeah, most writing is pretty bad. Most writing is pretty
Yeah.
boring. And like, yeah, it is kind of, it is like pretty frustrating. And like, I was frustrated when people started taking me seriously enough to let me write however I wanted. At the
Mm.
same time, most people, like, the reason it's impossible to read anything on Substack is because people shouldn't be given a long leash most of the time. Most people do need a really heavy edit. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do, so like, I see it both ways.
It's interesting too because I feel like our generation, like we just grew up, or we're in a generation now where like a lot of these writers and journalists and even like editors now are people that grew up as like stans of the people that they're now like profiling or writing about. So there is
Yeah,
this like,
that's like a big problem. It is like
yeah,
fundamentally a huge problem. It's
yeah,
just like, what do you mean? What do you mean this 2,000 word cover story, this 3,000 word cover story is rehashing the same points as the bio or whatever? And like,
hmm,
Mm.
there's some things you can't accommodate for. Like, oh, well, you kind of can accommodate for the fact that this person will be saying the same thing to every outlet. But like, if there's like one really specific log line for the album, if they're saying the same five things over and over again, it is like, it's your job to work out why those are the things, and like find
Yeah.
the things they're not kind of accounting for, and like
hmm,
ask about that. But you're
Yeah.
right, it's like a lot of people do this job to meet their favorite celebrity, or to meet someone they were a stan of, or to meet like
Mm.
whoever, or to like get a photo with someone. And it's like, isn't that less interesting to you than having kind of like a very high friction, stressful interaction
yeah,
with someone? I mean,
Yeah.
like, I
Well,
think that's fun. I
I
don't
yeah,
also
know.
think
yeah,
I've
like
had
I don't think that like even also has to compute into because like so much of like us starting this podcast is like, oh, we're stands and well, this is interesting because like I mean for me I was like, oh, I saw Ariana Grande doing interviews when I was younger and I was like, they're not asking her the right questions. But like I also think that like you can kind of come from that standpoint and still like challenge people.
yeah.
Like
I mean, I
yeah.
feel like that's
No.
like part
Well,
of it.
you
it's just
can,
rare.
but but it's rare, right? And you
Yeah.
have to, like, I think you have to like sit with yourself and be like, you have to prepare yourself to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people, again, it goes back to what I was saying, I think a lot of people see their job as like affirmation. Like they see what they're
Mhm.
doing without maybe saying it. Like I think they see themselves kind of like as part of a PR apparatus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the reason that happens is because artists also see journalism as part of their PR apparatus.
yeah,
And
Mm.
so you kind of like have to be that, like, grain of sand in the microchip or whatever. Like, but it's hard to do that. And like, it extends to criticism as well. It's like this is actually a conversation I had the first time I went on podcast. It was because I had written one of the only kind of negative reviews of Positions by Ariana Grande, and I think everyone kind of knew it was like kind of a bad album.
I didn't like that album. Everyone said that they liked that album. I didn't like that album. That's the
No,
one from her I just don't like.
so like I wrote a negative review, and it was like one of two, maybe it was the
hmm,
only one.
Mm.
And so then I got like, harassed pretty badly on
Yeah.
the internet by fans. And so I went on podcast to kind of like talk about that. And I asked John, I was like, why do you think, I was like, let's level here. Like, this is not a 4-star album. Why do you think everyone is giving it 4 stars? And he was like, well, it's like easy to be part of the rising tide. And also probably like, a lot of people are doing this to get noticed by, their favorite artist or whatever. And, that sounds kind of uncharitable. It makes people kind of sound like, attention whores or something. But I think a lot of the time it's also just true.
Yeah.
and which makes me pretty depressed. I think it's calmed down a little bit, actually. I think more people are interested in writing actual criticism now. I
Yeah.
don't know what changed, actually,
Well, I
but
think we
I have.
became aware of the like dynamic of like person like even just like journalists getting attacked for their criticism, and like that is like now like a thing that we understand as like a structured dynamic of something that happens in the criticism space. And like I think that has played into it where like now people are like, "Oh, well we know that this is a thing that happens," and now we're like pushing past it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. And it feels pretty good, even if now it's just 3-star reviews instead of,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
still sometimes I still think there's a lot of overrates going on, especially kind of sometimes from like legacy media. But
Hmm.
yeah, it, that was a kind of a depressing era that I do think we're kind of coming out of.
Yeah.
I also want to ask, like, in terms of like certain like pieces, kind of like when like a magazine like stops running and like their website goes down, and then like those pieces that you wrote aren't there anymore. Like, how do you kind of like reckon with that? Because that's like an interesting thing, because it's like you worked so hard to write something that is now just like out and not it's like done, it's not there anymore, and it just doesn't exist, and it's like it never happened almost, even though it's like just people with that memory of that piece.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, it's only recently started happening to pieces that I'm still really proud of.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So there's like a couple of, the cover stories I wrote for The Face.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I saw you
I think
reposting those.
I reposted one of them. The other two, I'm not sure. I don't know whether I can be bothered doing the rest of my pieces. There are a few really good ones, but um, it's kind of hard because they're like old in a way that is that would be confusing. Like posting a Jack
Hmm.
Antonoff interview from 2 years ago when he was on cycle, but now he's on cycle again. I worry that it's just confusing.
Yeah.
Or like posting like a Charlie XCX cover story from 3 years ago and now she's on cycle again. So I'm still working out what to do with that.
Yeah.
It is hard. I mean, I've archived all those pieces,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
like on that website, Archive Today or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I have PDFs, so I still have them. I don't really have an answer. I'm not a crazy nostalgic person,
Mm-hmm.
so truthfully, I kind of don't care. I care more
Hmm.
about the face not existing for the future rather than the face not
Yeah.
existing for the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
so yeah, I don't, it's sad, but
Mm-hmm.
I did the work. I enjoyed doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
How
Yeah.
did
And
you
if
go
people want,
about? Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, no,
Thought you were
you
done
go.
talking. No, you go. You finish.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say if people want to go read them, they can go look on one of those archive websites, and
Mm.
it'll still be there.
Yeah, that makes sense. How did you go about like shifting? I mean, I'm sure that is kind of just the writing that you've been doing, but not with like an eye on it. But how did you go about shifting into Shaad magazine and like making that kind of like the main thing that like you've been writing, and just like adapting to that sort of structure instead of writing for like freelance places?
Mm. Well, it's not. I would say it's still not the main thing I write. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I still the vast majority of my output is still for outlets. I just don't really post a lot of it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was interesting. It was like it happened by accident. So basically, what happened was, um, okay, so this is kind of a convoluted story, but basically, in so last year, 2025, late 2024, I was contracted to work at ID for their relaunch, as their like music editor. And so
Mm-hmm.
I worked there for like 6 months, and I would say I put like a lot of work in, not just like the music section, but also like, I updated the style guide. I like put in kind of like really rigorous practices around publishing and stuff. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I led I pushed the direction, like the tone of the website and that kind of thing. And like, Um, worked really hard on it and like made some of my like now best friends. There are
Mm,
people I still talk to and work with every day.
mm,
But I put a lot of work into it, and then and like um I would say like in that 6 months, and then for the first 6 months after, like the top performing pieces were entirely things that I had like commissioned and edited and stuff. Like we ran like the first ever profile of net spend and stuff like that, and
mm,
basically like then after 6 months they brought in a new editor in chief, and I kind of got quite unceremoniously like let go.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and I was just like so pissed off. And I was like at this like low point in terms of morale. I was like, I've worked for so many places and no one's ever like wanted to hire me or whatever. And at the same time, I had a meeting with Dazed, and they were like, they were like, oh, maybe like shortly after I got let go from ID, and they were like, oh yeah, there's a new editor in chief coming in. There might be a job for you.
mm,
Basically, if you were interested. And I was like, I'd be very interested. And then it
mm.
just didn't exist, basically.
Yeah.
Um, no shade to them. I think those guys are really cool. The whole team there is really cool. I think they're doing a really good job with the relaunch. No shade to ID either. I still really like those people, Tom and Steph and all them. But um yeah, so then I was like, I've been doing this nearly 10 years. I was so pissed off. I felt okay, in I think it's like the first episode of Sex and the City, when Charlotte is like her hair's all messy and she's like crying, and she's like, I've been looking for a husband. Where is he? Like what the fuck is
Yeah.
happening? That's how I felt. I was
Yeah.
like, I want a job. Like I want to edit a magazine. Like I want recognition.
Yeah.
Mm.
Basically, I want recognition for having really good ideas. And that sounds so crazy to say, but I was just
No, but that makes
so,
sense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like so pissed off. And then I made my Instagram bio, this is my magazine. So let's say that this is like May. And then in June, in June, I was like at Glastonbury. And I was with my friends Davey and Jade, who worked at the Face. And I was like, it was like 4 a.m. And I was like, yeah, like I'm just gonna turn my Instagram into a magazine. Like I made my bio, this is my magazine, and now I realize it can just be my magazine. And they're like, okay. And they're like, whatever you say. Um, and um, then this this is like giving you kind of like a bit too much of a peek behind the curtain. But basically, I was like, the only people getting jobs are people with like lots of Instagram followers who are really well connected, blah blah blah. And I was like, I want to show how fucking well connected I am, and like I want to show every fucking editor that I can be like a cool socialite as well. And so
Mm,
I texted 110 people in my phone asking asking what their summer anthem was. I'm gonna do
mm.
it again this year, but with
Aw.
150 people. I've decided, but I
Can we be
texted like,
asked?
yeah, yeah, you can be
Okay,
asked.
cool.
Um,
Yeah.
I really want to
and
answer
it
it.
was like a mix of like editors, musicians, writers, like random fashion people. Like it was a huge mix of people, and everyone submitted, and then I just published it. And my friend was like, "Oh, it's like you're doing it. It's like Shaad magazine." I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And then a week later, we were at the pub, and we are like, "Okay, let's like, I'll just do it. Like, let's just do Shaad magazine." And so then I started doing that, and I basically immediately knew what the tone should be and knew what the vibe should be, basically.
Mm,
And initially, and like I still kind of want to do this. Like I was doing pieces written by other people, and I still kind of am slash want to do that, but I kind of realized that it was only the stuff written by me that was like doing really, really well. I think the tone is actually kind of hard to nail. So I kind of put that on the back burner for now, but I plan
mm,
to go back to that as well.
mm.
Yeah. In like the biggest version of itself, what do you see it becoming?
Um, I think this is just what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just my Instagram based magazine. And like
Mm,
I like that and there have been like legitimizing things, like Audrey Hobart like agreed to do an interview very early on.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I hit up her publicist. I was like, like I think it kind of suits Audrey's vibe. Like it's kind of a cool, weird thing. She hadn't
Mhm.
done that much press at that point, and they said yes, and that kind of legitimized it a bit.
Yeah.
Obviously interviewing Charlie, her like
Yeah.
second interview of the
Yeah.
cycle, like that was like a kind of a very important moment for the magazine, I think. And since then, it's been like, very early on when I started kind of like getting guest posts from musicians or interviewing people or whatever, I started getting pitches from PRs for it,
Mhm.
which was kind of helpful. Not that I took most of them. But now, since the Charlie thing, I would say like on a kind of like industry side, people have taken it much more seriously rather than like
Mhm.
a weird curio. But yeah, I think I like what it is right now. I don't
Mhm.
know what it would be. The only things I can think of are at some point make I plan to pay someone to make a website that's just a list of every single article that you
Mhm.
can then click and it will take you back to Instagram. But I
Mhm.
think that would be like a helpful archive to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point maybe I'd want to do a compilation, like I don't know what you call it, like a collection, sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, it could be cool
Um,
to like have that in print, I feel like. Like I could see it.
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking of like for the first year, like compiling all the pieces from the first year. I don't think I'll do that in the end. But maybe 2 years. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
But I think it has to maintain like its level of adaptability basically because yeah, I'm trying very hard to kind of continue to see it for what it is, which is
Mhm.
Mhm.
just my Instagram based magazine. My Instagram that I've had since my Tumblr days,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like like yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um on that kind of note, like I'm interested how you've seen just like journalism in general evolve over time, like as you've been in the field. Like what do you feel like are the biggest changes that you've witnessed? And like also like because we were talking a lot about just like magazines not really like letting you have freedom sometimes and like that hurting the magazines. And I'm interested if you think there's like anything that you see in like the future of journalism, because I see like what you're doing as like a piece of this, but like in on a grander scale, like do you think that there's something that can happen that will just like encapsulate like just like a true authentic thing and that will become journalism and will come kind of like have a full circle moment where like we're like, oh okay, like this is good again. Because like on a
You
grander
know,
scale, I feel like that's not the consensus right now.
I mean, I still love reading articles.
Yeah.
My
Mhm.
first love, reading articles.
Mhm.
Like, like, and I think there are people who are still so good. Um, you know, what's kind of interesting to me is that I don't really see, for all the struggle that they've been in, I don't really see legacy titles going away at
Mhm.
any point. People fucking love it's like what we were talking about before. It's like people still care about the New Yorker. People
Yeah.
still care about people kind of still care about Vogue. Like people really, whenever people ask me kind of whether like music criticism is dying or whatever, I'm like, well, I'm liable to get almost doxxed every 6 months by thousands and thousands of fans who really care about something I wrote on a music blog that started in the mid 90s. So I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I do think that all the catastrophizing about everything misses the forest for the trees, just in the sense of like the tangible reality is that at least some people still do really care enough about this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, whatever it is, I think Substack podcasts, videos, I think it works in tandem with
Mm-hmm.
writing. I just
Mm,
think there is something like they just cannot replace. And like some Substacks are really good, but it's kind of a whole different thing. It's kind of a whole different form,
mm,
and like I just don't see those mediums as kind of replacing writing. Basically, I
mm,
know a lot of people, a lot of places are kind of pivoting back to video now. After that initial pivot to video in the kind of Vice era.
mm,
But yeah, I just I don't have a good answer. Like I think Shaad magazine works because it is like both really off the cuff and the result of like a lot of kind of really rigorous like thinking about what works for me and what people like about my writing.
mm,
And I think actually maybe if anything, like that could be the thing. It's like I feel like a lot of the time, like people aren't thinking very hard about. There's not a lot of logic into like a lot of the decisions that are getting made, basically.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that will kind of need to be the answer, kind of. But yeah, as for like what it will be, I kind of hope legacy media still exists. I really like a lot of kind of like kind of small like grassroots things going on, but
Mm,
again, like all those kind of grassroots operations from the 2010s and stuff, they kind of didn't last, and but the legacy titles did. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really
I
know.
do think there is a huge importance to like legacy, like continuing on and like being still like being something that like we're grounded in too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what's interesting is like everyone wants to work. Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of the people who are like care the most about good writing really want to work for those places. And like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's why places like No Bells or whatever have become funnels for new talent for like Pitchfork and things
Yeah.
like that. Um I think if there's like one outlet though that kind of I see as like hybridizing kind of like a lot of different things and it working really well, it would be like it would be bizarrely, it would be New York Magazine. Like I just think
Mm,
New York Magazine is like so good. It's like the best
Yeah.
reporting, the best
mm,
criticism, the best weird kind of bloggy stuff, the best kind of service journalism on its kind of like shopping and food verticals. Like New York Magazine is so good. It is such a good
Yeah.
product. And it's a legacy product, and it also kind of captures some of that early 2000s like blogging spirit, and it has like it has a lot of different things going on, and it all feels so good together.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm reading most. Like that's what I'm like. That's the website I'm checking like 10 times a day,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I feel like they did a really good job too of like, because I feel like they're one of the few places where like I'll see a social media post from them and I'll be like, I actually really want to read this full length article from them.
Mm,
And also, they're so good at pushing people's buttons,
Yeah.
without it ever seeming cheap. But it's like every week, like clockwork, they've got another personal essay that's making people crazy.
yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what in like if what that kind of like future of journalism kind of looks like to you guys, especially in the kind of like arts and culture space, which I think is kind of a slightly different conversation than the like broader future of
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
journalism one.
Well, I do think that in kind of the journalism space, I do think that like just like what we're talking about of like kind of like letting writers experiment. Like I think a magazine's gonna do that really, really right, but while like still pulling it back at the right times. But and like
Mm.
a lot of like that's happened like in scattered cases. I just think that one magazine maybe will come along and do that, and maybe a legacy like will convert themselves into that, like into like just like kind of a like place where that is more accepted and like the writer kind of has more say over things and it just like is kind of a more ideal scenario, and then that will like
Mm.
make everyone kind
Mm-hmm.
of be like, wait, well now they're doing this, so now we have to kind of like jump ahead, and maybe eventually it'll come back to that. I don't know, and that's
Yeah.
maybe my ideal though. So
I think that would be really good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
an ideal a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like I do genuinely see like more places kind of following like what New York Magazine is doing and like kind of like and even like that whole conglomerate of magazines like under it. I feel like with the way that they like promote their articles and the writers that they end up recruiting and stuff, I feel like I see that becoming more
Mm,
of a thing.
Oh, actually, yeah, that brings up a good point, which is that, and this is kind of an annoying one, but like, actually, this kind of speaks to both your points. Is like part of what New York Magazine is good at is like turning its like, you know, the writers basically, and like
Mm-hmm.
I know writers at places because I'm reading a high volume of things and because I like to pay attention to people's style or whatever. But I think
mm,
there will need to be a little bit of like kind of parasociality to readers' relationships with writers.
yes.
That is also kind
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
concept behind Shaad magazine as well.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, like is that if people are kind of like interested in you as a person, they will want to keep reading your writing, which means you
Yeah.
have like an audience, and like that's also why there were so many beloved like advice columnists and like critics and or whatever. And I do
Mm,
think the yeah, it kind of speaks to what both of you were saying. It's like, nurturing a writer, not just nurturing them, but like allowing them to like find a beat and like find kind of a lane for themselves within just your publication. And
Mm-hmm.
like that's hard because like there are budgets that need to be stretched over a lot of different things. But like if a publication can do that, I think it will be served really well.
yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I do
yeah.
definitely see us like moving toward that. I feel like there are
Mm,
even writers that I'm like following now that I'm like just like genuinely interested in them as people, and that makes me
Yeah,
want to read their writing.
yeah. Well, that also I think is such like an appeal to like any like idealization of like journalism because like in any movie or any show like in Sex and the City when like Carrie has her column and everyone knows her for her column, it's just like that is the idea behind it is like, oh, it's the person behind the writing and that is what people are
yeah,
attached to. And
Yeah.
I think that also for me is what like that was like kind of like my daydream as a child of being a writer was like, oh, well, people also care about my life and that's why they're coming back for the
they'll
writing. And I think
finally
that
like
is like
me.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But like yeah, I think that everything that I've ever liked that I've written is because I'm like, oh, I get a sense of that within what you're writing.
Yeah.
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 Mm. But thank you for coming on the podcast. This
Yeah.
has been so fun.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
This
for
was
having
so
me. That was
Lovely
really
interesting.
fun.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so
Yeah.
happy
Yeah, I
that
hope
you came on.
I hope it wasn't too frazzled. That was really fun.
Oh
It
my
was
God,
really
No,
no,
fun.
this was
literally
great.
everything you
Honestly,
said was so interesting about
amazing
like,
episode. So
yeah,
excited about it.
just like journalism and music journalism. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming
Thank
on.
you
Yeah, you're doing
guys.
great stuff right now. I'm very
Yeah.
happy like to see it out there in the ether.
Yes, I loved
Thank
your
you.
Olivia Rodrigo piece a lot.
We're
Loved
trying to
that.
Thank you
get
so
that
much.
we're trying to get that damn press pass for that Daisy Chain Fest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That will be. Oh yeah, I kind of want to go as well. I think I
Yeah.
might
I
try and go.
really want to go
Maybe I'll
because
see you.
like
Maybe I'll see you there. We can have a
maybe we'll see
key.
you there.
That'd be so fun.
That'd be
Yeah,
really
we just sent in
fun.
our press application, so pray for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
well,
hit you
well,
guys up if I'm ever in New York. Let me know if you're
yes,
ever
yeah,
in.
definitely.
definitely.